I'm back, and maybe this video will get posted on time. We'll see. Today I'm going to be doing my January wrap-up, and I would say like January was a good reading month. Usually every January for me is a really good reading month. I usually read about like 9 to 12 books, and this year I read 16 books. I'm going to go by order of which I read it, so let's get started. So the first book I read this month was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. My goal is to read the entire Harry Potter series this year. Every year I tell myself I'm going to reread them, but I always get to Goblet of Fire and I never get to Order of the Phoenix. And this year I'm going to change that. So January was Sorcerer's Stone and I enjoyed it. It's Harry Potter. Do I really have to give a review on it? 5 out of 5 stars. Here we go. I'm going to have like this giddy smile on my face for the next couple of books. The next book I read was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Now, this was a reread for me. I think this might actually be my new favorite series. I love it so much. I love the characters. Oh my god, Cardan. Just every time Cardan comes up in these books, I get this smile. Y'all know the feeling. And it's just so good. I love Holly Black's writing. I love how she writes about fairies, and I love her writing. Oh my god. The Cruel Prince. 5 out of 5 stars. Yes. Oh my god. Yes. The next book, ladies and gents, is The Wicked King. I loved this book. I think I loved it equally as much as I loved The Cruel Prince. And what's so good about this book, right? So Holly Black was in Austin for the Wicked King tour, and I had to go, right? Of course. And I went and I met her and I loved her. This was my second time meeting her, and she's always still such a doll. Love her so much. I have read some sequels this month, and I don't really want to tell the plot of those because then I don't want to ruin the first book for people who haven't read them. So, The Wicked King review. Review of The Wicked King. Next. The next book was honestly one of my most anticipated reads of 2018. And that was Arch Enemies by Marissa Meyer. So, Renegades, I stupidly loved Renegades. It was so good. I loved Nova, and I loved Adrian, and I loved the Renegades team, and I loved the Anarchist. Oh my god. So complex, so good. 5 out of 5 for Renegades. So I went into Arch Enemies with a mindset of, this gonna be good, I'm excited, yes. Officially on Goodreads, I gave this a 3 stars. I think I was being a little mean. I think it's probably like maybe like a 3.5. 3 to 3.5 for me. This takes place in a superhero world where you have your renegades, which are the good guys with superpowers, and they're superheroes and they're so cool. And then you have the anarchists who are the bad guys and they're going extinct. And then Nova, our main character, is an anarchist, but she infiltrates the renegades and becomes a renegade to take them down from the inside, which is so cool, and I love it. I love Marissa Meyer's writing. I found myself like halfway through getting bored, and nothing was happening, and my interest didn't peak again until like the last 100 pages, so was disappointed. Just like the whole middle I didn't like. I enjoyed the first part, I loved the end, but the middle didn't catch my attention, and now I still read it because I love Nova, and I love Ruby, and I love Sketch's team. Now I'm not saying the whole middle part was bad for me. There was a lot of parts where I was like dozing off and I just wasn't interested, but then there were parts in there I was like, ooh. So yeah, Renegades, 3.5 out of 5, maybe. We don't actually know, but I'm super excited for the last book. The way this book ended was so good. Actually, the way this book ended, I thought it was kind of like, I don't know, I'm not trying to like spoil it, and I'm not spoiling it, don't worry. But the last scene in the book, I expected like to read a little bit more and then that be the ending. So when I got to the actual ending, like I was left like, well, that's it. So yeah, Arch Enemies. on the rating scale. So the next, I'm gonna give like super short reviews on. For college, I'm taking an intro to fiction class, and we're focusing on American horror short stories. And the first short story we read was The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. And I gave this, I think I gave it a 4 stars. I really enjoy The Telltale Heart. There's so much for interpretation. Oh my god, I could go into like a million like pieces of how much I love The Telltale Heart. But yeah, short review for short stories. Yay! The next book I read, I was blown away by. And that's Sadie by Courtney Summers. As much as I like try to be, I'm not a big fan of mysteries. Like, who done it? Or where is she? So I was really hesitant to pick up this book, but my god, I love it. And I cried at the end. You already know what's gonna happen, but like the end, my heart was just pulled, and I was just so in love with this book. Like days after, I was still thinking about this book, and it was so good. 5 out of 5 stars. So this story follows Sadie and Maddie, and they're sisters, and they have kind of a broken home. Their mother is she's an addict, and she's never home, and eventually she just leaves Sadie and Maddie alone. So Sadie basically raising Maddie by herself. One day Maddie goes missing, and they find her remains soon after. And Sadie sets out to find who murdered her sister. Now Sadie has some ideas of who could it be. So this story follows a podcast who follows Sadie's story, and so it kind of flips between Sadie's story from the past to present time, and it's so good. And my heart, I love this book so much. I cried so much. My goodness. The end, again, as I said, I was thinking about this book for days after, and I loved it. I loved it. Please go read this book. This might be one of my favorite reads of 2019, but 2019 just started. But again, I think this is going to be one of my favorite reads, so yes, I love it. The next book I read this year is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars because I loved it. It's so good. Now, I've said this before, and Leigh Bardugo's books intimidate me. By intimidate me, I mean they intimidate me. I was always scared to pick up Six of Crows, and when I did, I didn't like it, and I ended up DNFing it. Then I told myself I'm gonna come back to Leigh Bardugo this year. The one author I'm gonna read everything of is Leigh Bardugo. So I started with Shadow and Bone. I liked this book. I don't really have much to say about it. I wasn't blown away by it. It was good. I liked the characters. I connected with the characters. I can't say for other Leigh Bardugo books that I connected with the characters. I'm talking about you, Six of Crows. I'm excited to see more of the Darkling because I see on Twitter all the time the Darkling this, the Darkling that, the Darkling everything. I want to love the Darkling like everyone loves the Darkling. So Shadow and Bone, 4 out of 5 stars. Yes. The next book I read is The Towering Sky by Katharine McGee. Now this is the final book in the Thousandth Floor series. I have been following this series for so long. So I picked up The Thousandth Floor when it came out. I read it, didn't enjoy it. Last year I picked up The Thousandth Floor again. I enjoyed it, and then I continued with the series. In my head right now, thinking back on it, my ratings from when I finished the book is I'm still in this book high from the book, so I usually rate them better than I should. Right now I'm thinking I rated this 3.5. Maybe 3. Oh, I rated it 4. I wish I liked this as much as I liked the first 2 books. If you've read the book, like, please tell me what you thought about the ending, because I was shocked at the ending. Don't get me wrong. Crazy way to end a book. But then the epilogue, I was just like, well, that ruined the purpose of everything. But yeah, so, despite what my Goodreads said, I'm gonna give this like a 3 out of 5 stars. It was good. So if you're wondering about the Thousandth Floor, it follows 5 people, I believe. It follows Avery, Alita, Eris, Watt, and Rylan. This building is basically New York, and the higher up you live, the more rich you are. So we have Avery Fuller, who lives on the 1000th floor. She's super popular. She's genetically made, and so she's the it girl. Everybody wants to be her. You have Alita Cole, who is Avery's best friend, and she lives not like maybe 100 floors down, somewhere. She lives below her, but not too far down. And then you follow Watt, who is in love with Avery. Of course he is. He lives, I want to say, in the middle of the building. and he's a hacker. He kind of installed a computer in his brain named Nadia. So robots like that are illegal, but he continues to have it anyways because he made her and everything, and she helps him hack into everything. Woo. So then you follow Eris, and Eris doesn't really have a good plot from what I can remember. She finds something out that tears her family apart, and that's really all I can remember. And then you have Rylan, who lives, I think, on like the 30-something floor, and she gets a job working, I think, like somewhere up in the 900 floor, and then things go crazy, and I can't really tell you Rylan's plot unless, because it kind of gives the story away. But I liked this series. Overall, I would give this series probably, if I'm being generous, a 4 out of 5 stars. Because I liked 2 of the 3 books. The next book I read is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. Last year, I read this series for the first time. Fell in love with it. I am rereading this series basically so I'm caught up when Capturing the Devil comes out, which is the 4th and the final book, if you didn't know. And so last year, I had gotten an arc of Escaping from Houdini. Loved it. That's another story. But when the finished copy came out, Kerri had mentioned how the arc and the finished copy have different endings. And I just didn't have time to read the finished copy, so I'm making time for that this year, and I'm excited to see the differences because the arc, like, took my heart out, stomped on it, tore it into little pieces, and then, like, put it back in. And it hurt. I didn't love this book as much as I loved the other 2 books, but it was still good. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Maybe I'm biased because I just love this series so much. This book is set in 1888, and it follows our lovely leading lady, Audrey Rose Wadsworth, and our other lovely leading man, Thomas Cresswell. Audrey Rose's uncle is like the mortician of town. Mortician, doctor. He's a little bit of everything mixed in. He's been teaching Audrey Rose his medical teachings. And one of his other students is Thomas Cresswell. The lovely Thomas Cresswell. And then going on in the city are a string of murders. And it ends up being the murders of Jack the Ripper. And so Thomas and Audrey Rose go out to solve the murders, and yeah, it gets crazy. And I love Thomas Cresswell, if I haven't mentioned that before. And I really love Audrey Rose too. I love the 2 together. I'm in like a really dancey mood right now, I'm sorry. Very sorry about it. Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco, 5 out of 5 stars. Please go read it. I love this series so much. Kerri, I love you so much. Oh my god. Love it. The next short story I read was The Veldt by Ray Bradbury. I didn't like this one so much. I probably gave it like a 2 out of 5 stars. It was okay. The next book I read is The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. I read The Wicked King, and I just was thrusted into the world of Holly Black, and I want to read everything by her now. So I picked up The Coldest Girl in Cold Town, which I actually had for the longest time, but I just now read it. I loved this book so much. 5 out of 5 stars. At first was like forcing myself to read this. I was like, I don't want to read about vampires, blah, blah, blah. But I listened to the audiobook of this. Whew, so good. They add like music when it's tense, and then it makes you feel tense. So this book follows your girl, Tana. So basically there's been a vampire outbreak, and they try to contain all the vampires into cold towns, which humans can get in, but you can't get out once you're in Cold Town. And one day she's at a party and she wakes up and everybody has been massacred. She's walking around and she sees her ex-boyfriend. I think he was tied to a bed and he had been bitten, but he hadn't been turned into a vampire yet. And then in the room is this other guy who is a vampire, and he says, "Help me." And Tana's like, okay. The 3 of them head to Cold Town, and it gets crazy. I was so in love with this book, and then Holly had said at her signing that she was gonna revisit this book again, and I think maybe write a sequel. So I am so excited for that. I love Holly Black, and I love Holly Black's writing so much. Oh my god. Love it. The next book I read is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Now, I have had this on my shelf for so long, and V.E. Schwab is one of the authors I'm very intimidated to read. I didn't love it as much as other people did. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I loved it. I didn't see the hype around it, but I did see the hype around it. So this follows Victor and Eli. Victor is writing a paper about EOs for one of his classes, and EOs are extraordinary people. Victor and Eli come to realize that people who have near-death experiences, who have died but then have been brought to life, come back with a superpower. And so Victor and Eli decide to test this, and they begin having superpowers. Eli ends up being sent to prison, while Victor is still on the street and he's being considered a superhero. So Eli breaks out, and his main plan is to take Victor down. So Eli gets like a band of little like misfit superheroes, and it's so cool, and I loved it. I loved the concept of this book. Maybe I just like superheroes. I don't know. But yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is the worst rated book on this list, and that is The Hazelwood by Marissa Albert. I listened to the audiobook of this, and I DNF'd it probably like 50 pages till the end. I just wasn't feeling it, and I didn't want to continue reading it because I didn't understand it, and I was just having a hard time following along, and I really, really, really hated the main character, Alice, so much. I can't express how much I hated her. I don't really like that book. The last book I read in January is A Curse So Dark and Lowly by Bridget Kemmerer. So it's Beauty and the Beast retelling. Our main character is Harper, and she has cerebral palsy, but that does not stop her. You have Ren, our main character, and he is cursed, and he becomes a monster every season, and for about, I want to say it was like 100 or 200, 300 seasons, he's brought a new girl in, and the girl hasn't been able to break the curse, and the curse, you know, is true love. 4 out of 5 stars. I did feel like the ending was rushed, and that's why it didn't get the full 5 out of 5 stars, but it was good. I loved it, and I cannot wait for the sequel. So excited. I swear I'll try to post more regularly, but who knows? Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys later.